Hey everyone, Brainflex here with another Eternal Return video. With the new ranked season for 1.0 coming up in a week, I wanted to cover a few topics that will hopefully help you prepare and succeed in that season. So I'll be covering a few topics, mainly team compositions and how to mentally prepare yourself for that, just so that it's as smooth as possible when it finally hits. So the main reason why I want to talk about team compositions is because team comps are very important in this game. Obviously you can play whoever you want, but you're obviously going to see a difference in efficiency and success when it comes down to, playing a haphazard collection of characters together versus having an actual backbone with a good front line, a good support, and a good back line. This video will be hopefully a good visualization of that, especially since me and my friends accidentally happened into a pretty good composition in my opinion. One of the big things in Eternal Return, if you're coming from a different game, is that there is no difference between magic damage and physical damage. There's just one armor type called armor that mitigates most of the damage that is in the game. So tanks are pretty powerful and pretty necessary because they can soak so much damage regardless of who the enemy composition is. And it really ends up making a lot of compositions very flexible as long as you understand why they fill similar roles. For example, Ava and I guess you could say like Rio can fill very similar roles because they both can deal damage from a pretty safe range, and their sustained output is very high on a single target if you allow them to hit you freely. Obviously, there's a few differences because Ava's AoE is a lot better if you catch people, but Rio's consistent damage over a long period of time is a lot higher because Ava can run out of VF Force, which will make her damage peter out very quickly. But again, if you understand those niche differences and you still feel confident in making compositions that aren't exactly one-to-one, then I think knowing these concepts will be very good for your gameplay overall. First of all, I want to talk about the very classic composition, which is going to be having a tank frontliner and a backliner. So Tia isn't really a true frontliner, but she is technically a melee, so she is pretty good at, playing in between me and the Lennox, which you'll see a lot. The Tia's damage won't be as high, obviously, but she'll be so useful. She provides so much utility, whether it's silencing or knocking people up or even providing a great AoE stun. It is pretty insane just how valuable having a strong support is. Lennox obviously is more of a tank support where her damage isn't nearly as high as either mine or Tia's, but you can just tell how much utility she has because she ends up, knocking people away. She ends up absorbing so much damage because she's running the force field tactical skill, which provides a shield. There's just really so many things that make this team comp very consistent, and you can kind of sub in and out a lot of characters to replicate the success. So the next team comp I want to talk about is going to be more of a dive comp, where you're going to play characters that are really good at jumping one person and then taking them on very quickly regardless of how tanky they are. And that's going to be stuff like playing Leon, Luke, and maybe a third damage dealer like Yuki or Leon. So this composition is obviously much higher risk because you're all playing melees, but because of the fact that a lot of melees can dash very quickly in this game, especially with the addition of Blink, it can be very hard for players to respond to that type of dive initiation. So obviously you have Luke, who has a very long range initiation with very good scaling, as well as a point-click dash that will allow him to swap focus when needed. Yuki is one of the classic characters that does a lot of damage with auto attacks, it gets a lot to hit you. And then Leon just provides the entire team a shield, which is going to guarantee value because everyone's around him. And also his wave is going to be more than good enough because, people are going to be melee anyways. He can knock people back towards his team if they flash away. Thinking about Blink and Flash in the same word didn't really work out. So again, a comp that's very, standard, but for example, if you were to run somebody like Estelle in that composition, it might not work as well because Estelle's main value is blocking projectiles and kind of dashing backwards towards teammates to peel. And she is fine, but like if you swap out Estelle for Leon, you won't see as good of success because you're losing that consistent crowd control, you're missing a much broader general shield, and her pick potential isn't nearly as good as Leon's, especially when you're all melee. Estelle's much better at peeling, so she'd be much more reliable in a composition like the one I'm playing where she would replace the Lennox player. So another composition that's being very popular right now is actually playing two ranged damage dealers and then a frontline. The reason why this is really popular is because mages right now, or just damage dealers that sit in the back in general, are pretty overtuned. You'll probably see a lot this game where I will just like stand there and face tank somebody and just kill them before they can kill me, even though they're most likely, melee characters with a lot of high burst, but I just burst them faster. So compositions like, again, with Ava, maybe you could run Adriana Ava, which might be a bit redundant. That could maybe work. I think more classically you could run characters like Hayes and Theodore. Theodore obviously not the best self-peel, but when you just crap out damage like he does, combined with Hayes adding to that damage, you can probably mow down a lot of frontliners before they really expect it. Another example of this would be playing like 2 auto attackers. Again, the auto attackers might not have the best self-peel, but if they ever get buffed, you'll probably be able to feel the hurt from their combined auto attacks very, very much, especially if one of them takes frailty or maybe have an air isol for the free armor penetration. It's really just another composition where you can play either 2 mages or 2 auto attackers, and even though the functionality and the efficacy of the compositions will vary by the patch, theoretically they're very similar because you're not forced to run an auto attacker and a mage, or like 2 auto attackers or 2 mages because of how armor works in this game. It's just very flexible, and if you want to play an auto attacker, then you can play an auto attacker. If you want to play a mage, you can play a mage, and it doesn't really matter what you pick because in the end you're achieving the same goal of dealing high damage to one person. So another composition that's very, very popular is playing 2 support-ish tanks with 1 extremely high damage dealer. So extremely high damage dealers would not actually include Ava because having 2 supportive tanks really extends the fight. And if you're playing Ava, as you'll be able to tell in a lot of my fights, I either kill someone instantly and I have to kind of run around to kill the other 2, or I'll just run out of damage and the other team ends up walking away. So the characters that would fit this more sustained battle are going to be more classically auto attackers like Rio, like Hart, or characters that can really spam a lot like Hayes and Adina. Hayes is not as hard as Adina to play, but I do think Adina is a little bit better, but she is very difficult and she doesn't have as much, poke and self-peel as Hayes does, but she has a lot of utility, so she can also provide, a lot of sustain for your front line randomly. She can also provide just a lot of crowd control for them as well if they want to focus somebody, but again, it's a matter of what you want to do. Do you want to be that more support character at the cost of playing a more complex and also less mobile character, or do you want to play a character that is a lot flashier when it comes to movement, but you don't have as nearly much utility and your teammates might go down because you can't peel somebody off for them? Some characters to avoid right now, I think, in the squad settings are going to be characters that deal a lot of single target damage, but due to the numbers being bad, they don't really do that great. So a really good example of this right now, in my opinion, is going to be Fiora. Fiora had her numbers tuned and reworked for 1.0, and while she does do very, very good damage, she isn't nearly as high of a burst damage dealer as somebody as, let's say, Daniel, who not only deals a lot of damage but also has very, very good self-peel with his E blink and his ultimate, making him basically invulnerable for a very long time. Obviously, Fiora and Daniel would fulfill the same, goal as a dive assassin that tries to take someone out very quickly, but just because of how the numbers are tuned, one of them is much better than the other one. And that's going to be something that's going to be very common in this game, where characters, while you can play any character you want, you'll definitely notice a very high performance difference between certain characters for certain compositions, which is why I again want to reiterate that you shouldn't be focused on just one character for any comp. You really want to be flexible, unless you're just that good at that character or you're that dedicated to that character. So like, for example, myself, I'll probably be playing a lot of Adina in squads, but Adina is very difficult, and I think Ava might be a better pick just because she's a lot easier on the noggin and on the spam. My sustained damage output and my utility is much worse than Adina because obviously I lack a lot of crowd control, but you can just tell my APM when I'm playing Ava is very low. I'll press R, wait a few seconds, press E, match my Q and W, and then press R again. And then sometimes I'll do something cute like juke out and like move around, but very often I'm really just pressing one button and kind of aiming and tracking people. Whereas with Adina, I either look at my conjuncts and just handle a lot more brain power. But again, it comes with, it's really just come and go, because maybe one day I'll not want to play Adina, I'll want to play Debbie and Marlene, who is more of that frontline bruiser support person who does do a lot of damage but doesn't deal as much damage as Ava. But she provides very good, crowd control and utility. So she'd take the place of someone like Tia in this composition. Maybe one day I want to go back to Dialin, and if I'm playing Dialin, we'd probably have to swap this composition up a little bit just because she doesn't fit nearly as well. We wouldn't have a long range damage dealer that can really focus past any dive. We wouldn't have a character that's very consistent when it comes to tanking an entire team. And Lennox's usefulness would be lowered a lot, because Lennox can no longer sit there and stand and protect 2 other people, because now she'd just be protecting 1, which would be Tia, because Dylan will be in there and fighting. So you should really be paying attention to who you're playing and what you're playing. Yeah, sorry, I feel like I had an idea for this video, and I'm kind of worried that it's not coming out as well as I intended to, because I do think that people will make compositions that don't really make that much sense. Whether it's because the characters they play are worse or because the characters don't really fit well together. But I'm hoping that the inherent message is there. Like, you never want to play a composition that doesn't have great single target damage, because then you lose the ability to kill Wick or to focus down a tank quickly. You never want to play a team that really just focuses on one character without enough damage on that tank character, because then you're just gonna lose slowly through better spread damage. And you don't really want to play characters that are just bad, because even though it's a team game, like, you can tell there are tiers here and there. So in the end, it's just a lot of, knowing what you counter and what you don't. So yeah, again, sorry for kind of more of a rambly video. I really just want to, again, post a lot of videos while the game is still very active, because it feels better that way, and I think it'll be better for the game overall. With all that said, I hope you guys come back to see more videos, and I hope you all have a good day or night. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.